carrot approach of supporting people into work better than the stick of cutting benefits?
We get some statistics out. So the UK is the only major economy where the employment rate has fallen over the last 5 years, mainly because of people out of work with ill health. According to the Office for National Statistics, 11 million working age people in the UK do not have a paid job. 9.25 of them are economically inactive, which means they're not looking for a job. And 2.8 of those say it's because of long-term sickness. Now, I know the government's made some announcements this week, Lisa, quite a lot about the carrot, I would say, in terms of changes to job centres, mental health, access to mental health care, that kind of thing. Ludwig's question is twofold. It's also about the stick. Do you think there needs to be a stick? And if so, what should it be?
Well, what we announced this week is that you've got nearly 1 million young people who are out of work. They're not in work, they're not in education, they're not in training, which we think is a national scandal. I don't think anyone can be happy with that situation. And you've also got around 2.8 million people who aren't in work because they're too sick to work. Now, one of the ways that you tackle that, obviously, is what we've announced in the budget this week, which is reform and investment into the National Health Service to make sure that people can get access to healthcare in a timely way. It helps businesses, particularly small businesses, because that's a huge cost to them if staff are off work. But it also helps those people to be able to get the opportunities that they want. We make no apology for saying that for those 1 million young people, there has to be a pathway. We've just been debating on this very programme the fact that we're opening the borders to ask people to come in to work in our National Health Service, to work in our creative industries, to work in engineering, to drive our buses. And yet we've got 1 million young people who would kill for those opportunities.
But it's not just young people, Lisa, is it? And you've promised, the government has promised an overhaul of the disability benefit system. It's a review.
What's frustrating here is that we're saying, oh, well, it's not just young people, it's the disabled too. There's two different groups that have been persona non grata for the last ever that we refuse to properly assist, and saying, well, that you're doing this shake-up of disability reforms. They're fucking copying the Tories. It's coming from the Centre for Social Justice set up by Ian Duncan Smith, the butcher, as to how to strip disabled people of more welfare payments, try and force them back into work. Clearly, they're too sick to do.
There's a lot of reviews going on. I think this might be the 7th so far that I've counted.
That's not what we announced this week, Fiona. What we announced this week was that we're going to reform the job centres so that they can look at the individual in front of them.
Well, Liz Kendall, who's the Department for Work and Pensions, talked about a review which will be presented in the spring 25, an overhaul of sickness and disability benefit. I know that you've pledged to stick to the previous government's target of cutting $3 billion from that welfare bill. How are you going to do it?
Well, I will answer your question, but I do really want to address the question.
Well, the question is about carrot and stick. I'm asking what's the stick?
I'm trying to get to it because, people, I feel the frustration all the time. People don't want to know whose fault it was. They want to know how we're going to fix it. And what we announced this week was a plan to fix it. So we're opening up those opportunities. We're partnering with people.
You keep saying no one wants to hear about who broke it, and yet literally every time you're questioned about this, it's the Tories broke it. Which, isn't necessarily a bad argument, because they did, but you can't then say we're not mentioning the people who broke it, but it was them that broke it, but we're not mentioning who broke it.
It's obvious who broke it. Just say it. Everyone's thinking it. Everyone's thinking it.
I think they've done focus groups, and people are like, stop saying 22 billion about fucking everything. It's really annoying.
Fix the foundations.
Yeah, people don't want your management speak bullshit,
like Channel 4, the Royal Shakespeare Company, the Premier League, because we've got 25,000 vacancies in the creative industries, and we've got people who would love to work in those things. But the lady in the audience said,
you raise a good point, Kieran. There is no stick for the employer. We've said this before. When we talk about a flexible economy, what they mean is flexibility from the worker and profits to the employer.
Yep.
That is it. There's no flexibility in the opposite direction.
they have to have access to the education, training and opportunities to do it. If people don't take up those opportunities, we have also said that we will not pay benefits to those people. Now, my experience of young people is that they want to work, they want to be in training, they want to be in education, but I do think it's fair to say there is also an obligation to take up those opportunities.
But that
when they're
happens
offered.
already.
What
No,
I think is really problematic.
Hang on, that happens already.
Yeah, but what
if you are offered a job and if you don't turn up, you can be sanctioned.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting that's different?
Yeah, so what I think is really problematic is that right now there's a sanction, but there's no opportunity. If you go to the job centre, they have no freedom to look at the person in front of them and decide what the right pathway is and what support can be made available. It's a very rigid system. It's a department for welfare, not a department for work. And we're going to change that
Well,
by
that's the
opening
new
up
line.
opportunities to people, particularly to young people. We make no apology for that. We think it's a national
Honestly, it really is just a government of buzzwords.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
Like Department of Work, it's the Department of Welfare. We're going to allow them to do the.
Literally, it's like it's Bill Clinton's Welfare to Work program from the 1990s. They're just again riffing off of old like third way garbage that wasn't even popular then.
But it's the sound bites that are really annoying.
It's really tilting. It's really tilting. What I would say is if she's so insistent, and I am insistent too, that there's lots of young people out there who want to work, who want to contribute, who don't feel like they have the ability to do so, who don't have the foot in the door, so to speak, right? There is a law in Italy, which was passed, I believe, in the 70s or the 80s.
Okay, this is already bad news. If there's a law in Italy, go on, how fascist is this going to be?
No, it's a good one. So there was a law in Italy. It was called the Marcora Law. And what it did is, in a period of high unemployment in Italy, they decided, well, what we should be doing to encourage people not only to want to work, but to want to build something of themselves, is we will offer people who are on unemployment a lump sum of their benefits that they can pool together collectively with other people who are also on welfare to build a cooperative business together.
Oh, communism.
Yeah, it's communist, literally actual factual communism, right? But so what this does is twofold. It gets people from welfare and into work. It helps people to build something of themselves rather than being at the mercy of the labour market, quote unquote. It allows them to feel like they have a personal impact, a personal stake in what they're doing because they're not alienated from their labour as it's cooperatively owned. And it's good for overall productivity and for growing the economy as well because it's more investment that's going in.
What you're not getting is how is that going to help rich people get richer? It isn't. So it's never going to become government policy here.
Well, of course it's not. But that's what I would do, right?
Yeah.
If you wanted me to give you one policy,
you would do a communism. We know.
Like the biggest problem that we have with young people is their detachment. It's their detachment from community, their detachment from society, their detachment from purpose. And you can't railroad people into purpose. You can't railroad people into being part of a community. It's not going to solve their problems with, say, mental health, for example, to make them piss in bottles for Amazon, is it? No, you've got to give them a stake. They have no stake in society. They can't buy a house. Their pensions suck. The climate's collapsing. The Nazis are back. Like, where else are you going to give them a stake other than building something for themselves and making something of themselves, rather than just saying, well, if you don't take this job doing something rubbish for some massive multinational mega corporation, then we'll cut your benefits. That's just going to make them depressed. Although they'll just say, I'm not having any benefits at all, and they'll move back in with their parents.
The only stake they have is the betting company that are advertising on every meme on the planet.
Handle that 1 million of them out of work. But you can't just sanction people. You have to provide the opportunities for people to be able to do that. And that's why we're saying investment in the National Health Service, help people off sick pay, back into work, open up opportunities for young people, skills, training and education.
Okay, you've made that point.
I genuinely believe that most people in this country who currently aren't in work but are looking for work will find that absolutely game-changing. You said, is it the carrot or the stick?
And the people who are in work and aren't looking for work?
Both.
Because those numbers are staggeringly high.
Well, but there are people, for example, during COVID, during the pandemic, who took early retirement. They decided, actually, I can afford not to work. I don't need to claim my pension yet. I'm not going back to work. We're not going to force people into work if they don't want to be in work and they're self-sufficient. But what we're saying is, if we provide those opportunities and you don't take them, then obviously the country can't. If people work really hard for their wages. There isn't a lot of money in this country. I think people know that at the moment. We've inherited a very poor economic situation.
You said, and you'll introduce a sanction in that case.
And so people have a responsibility to take it up, but I genuinely believe that with those opportunities they will.
I feel incredible relief that I'm not in Lisa's position as a government minister having to defend the situation.
Yeah, but you were, and when you were in government, the number of people taking benefits went up and up and up.
No, hugely up. So I think here are two things that I probably wouldn't have felt cheerful saying if I was a government minister. Number one, we're in an unbelievable hole. Right, this is 9.2 million economically inactive people. That's 1 in 7 of people aged under 65.
Who created the economy, though, Rory? How did that happen?
Yeah, I wonder who might have been in charge of kneecapping not only economic growth and the public realm, but also the labour market. Which particular political party that may or may not have had somebody like this man as a cabinet minister might at any point have screwed up the literal entire macroeconomy for at the very least 9 years?
But Brexit or something. Just focus on the Brexits.
Yeah, exactly. Brexit was the real tipping point.
Who aren't children. Huge. Secondly, we're complete European outliers. The rest of Europe, this stuff sorted itself after COVID, and we didn't. Thirdly, what I could never really say as a government minister, nobody has really much of a clue why it's happening. It's really weird. Here are some things that we notice, though. 1 in 20 people are on disability benefits in Windsor. Something closer to 1 in 6 are on disability benefits in Blackpool. So it clearly has some connection to poverty, to region.
Yes, it does have to do with poverty in region. Again, I wonder which party might have been in government at any point in the last 45 bloody years who decided that, well, there's no point in us investing any money into the north. The market and the free market will just sort everything out. We can let entire communities die. We can let entire centres of industry just completely die. And if the free market doesn't want to invest there, we'll let these areas rot and people will never see any amount of prosperity in those areas ever again. And then we look 45 years later, oh, well, look, these people, it's full of poverty and it's full of a lack of desire for people to go out and work. I wonder, yeah, fucking Raquel bloody surprise, Rory.
Yeah. Also, in terms of sickness, who destroyed the NHS, leading to more and more people being long-term sick?
Exactly. The Tories reduced NHS funding as a share of GDP every single year from 2010 to 2019. It's the longest sustained drop in NHS spending as a percentage of GDP of all time. Of all time. So they cannot be anyone else to blame for the state of the NHS. No one else is to blame.
And he wasn't even around for the bit where they weren't underfunding it massively. Like, he was just there for the austerity year. Yeah.
I'd suggest you need to look at what's happening with children too. The number of children with ADHD and autism diagnoses has gone up by 50%. It's a staggering increase.
Do I have to get the left-handed people graph? Because I'll fucking do it. If you make me do it, Rory, I will do it.
Majority of people claiming personal independence payment at the moment are declaring mental health issues. And if we really step back, part of the problem maybe is that we've created a really rubbish working environment. Jobs are poorly paid, they're extremely stressful. People in Britain work much longer hours than they do in Europe for less money.
You did this. You did this.
And therefore, it's not very surprising that 9.2 million people are not very keen to re-enter the workforce.
Matt, right. Just fucking hot dog suiting all over it. Literally, we are looking for the guy who did this. We're looking for him. If anyone can find anybody to blame for this, I please hope they let me know.
Who is this Homer Simpson? Yeah. Okay.
No, my name's Rory Stewart. I'm Guy Incognito.
True. Although technically he was a different person to Homer Simpson, as we find out, but the joke works.
Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.